Welcome. My name is Karthik Suresh Kumar. I'm the Senior Product Manager in the Health AI team at Amazon Web Services. I'm responsible for a service called Health Lake, which is our fully managed, pay-as-you-go, highly transactional FHIR and analytics server. Our talk today is about computable interoperability, and you might be wondering, what is this? Interoperability in healthcare is just a way for two systems to be able to exchange data from one another. But normally, once you exchange the data, the processes are probably still going to be manual, and it's really slow, and it takes a long time. And I think all of you will agree, like when we think about processes in healthcare, it takes a long time, right? So in a time and age where we have like the ability to talk to our devices and ask really complex questions and get an answer in an instant, why doesn't that work in healthcare? And that's frustrating, right? And I feel like the process of prior authorization is a good example like that, where can we get fast decisions so that we can get access to healthcare? And that's a way of advancing healthcare into the next stage. And I think that's sort of where computable interoperability is the next evolution of interoperability, where it goes beyond just exchanging data and accessing it, but being able to compute across multiple different data sets, across clinical and financial data, to arrive at the decisions quicker so that we can get people access to the healthcare faster. So that's sort of how I think computable interoperability is going to be the way forward. And in order to do that, there are several different stakeholders. Oops, I didn't realize I had another slide in between. So in order to do that, I think there are several different stakeholders who need to come together to make this happen. And when I say that, it's like the standards organizations like Vinci who are creating the implementation guides that tell what kind of data needs to be collected in order to make this work. And then you have the payers and the providers who need to really look at their processes and their workflows to see if they're able to collect the data and if the data is correct so that we can actually make use of it. Sometimes, if there's an end date, people will just put 9999. It's completely unusable, right? So those things need to change. And the third leg of the stool is the technology side. Like the technology vendors like us, we have the responsibility to bring the technology to be able to do this at scale. And what I mean by that is, we can't just do this and it works for a few people. We need to be able to change the entire system so it works nationally. And I think in order to do that, we need to be able to bring that scale and work for millions of people at like really fast latencies to be able to cut down those things. So in order to do that, I'm just going to talk about some of the things of how Vinci's goals are able to culminate in this CMS 0057 rule. And all of those three stakeholders have come together to try and see how we can reduce like the burden on like the individuals, right? So I'm going to dive deeper into, on the technology standpoint, how we can support this. So Health Lake, if you don't know what it is, it's an AWS service. If you have an Amazon account, you can log in. You can click on a button saying Create Data Store. In 10 or 20 minutes, it'll spin up an entire FHIR server with all of the infrastructure, with all of the FHIR APIs, and support for implementation guides and all of that, in just a click of a button. You don't need to do anything else. That's the fully managed part of it. And as soon as you create that, the service has support for FHIR implementation guides with it. And we will support all of the regulatory FHIR implementation guides, including the CMS 0057 IGs that are required for it. Now that we can support the IGs, we got to get the data in there, right? So in order to do this at scale, a lot of time you have millions of records that you need to be able to ingest. Today, in production, as soon as you create a particular data store, we can ingest up to 4 billion resources in a day per data store. And that's important because you can create as many data stores as you want based on your business requirements. If you have multiple plans or if you have different regions, if how you want to split your data, you can create as many data stores as you want. And every single data store is able to provide that level of scalability to ingest large amounts of data. Now that you have data ingested, you need to be able to access it faster. So um, in production today, at the 90th percentile, if you do a FHIR read call with like a FHIR ID, it takes about 100 milliseconds to be able to retrieve that data. That's 1/10 of a second. And if you do a FHIR search call, it's about 150 to 200 milliseconds. Why is that important? I think all of us will relate to, if we pull up our phones and we pull up an app and we see that dreaded loading circle that comes in, that's usually an API call waiting for data to be able to load it. So that's why working at like those fast latencies creates a really good user experience. And we're all used to getting fast responses on our phones from other commercial applications. So this also is able to give you a good user experience on that. Now that you have data in and you're able to access it quickly, what do you do with it? HealthLake supports event-driven architecture, meaning it can detect changes in the data as it is flowing into the data store, and then you can trigger workflows downstream from it so that you can actually kick off like other workflows that you have within your organization. Now that's great because that reduces that manual effort that happens right now, and by event-driven architecture, you're able to shrink that amount of time that goes into that process, further reducing the time and the delays in a process that we think about. And the last thing that I want to mention is HealthLake can also support ways to unlock other secondary use cases, meaning if you've gone through all of this trouble to putting all of this data in a data store, it should be usable for other needs as well. So HealthLake actually does zero ETL analytics. What that means is if you ingest data into the data store, it automatically transfers all of that into an analytical table, meaning somebody can go query it using a SQL query, like select star and patients, and it'll give you all of the patients. And that's amazing because that one click that I told you in the very beginning, that's all you had to do. No other setup required. So it's a little easy to be able to see sometimes as an illustration as to how this works. So this is like all of the different data sets that we might have in the industry that's coming in. If you already have it in the FHIR format, you can ingest it directly through FHIR APIs. If you don't have it in FHIR format, that's great. There's a data converter that can convert it into the FHIR format before it comes into HealthLake. Now, the fully managed piece of it is this red box in the middle. So as the data is flowing in, it's already validating it to the specific IGs that you need to use. It comes built in with the APIs, like I said. It has compliance IG support, the analytics support, the eventing support, and it also integrates with other Amazon services like Comprehend Medical, which is a medical NLP service, which can automatically look through all of the unstructured data, like clinicians' notes and other things like that, and pull out like entities for ICD codes or demographic information and create FHIR resources and store it back into the patient record as a system-generated resource, which is great. Now you can actually search and use all of the FHIR APIs on the same data. And on the right-hand side over here is all of those secondary use cases that I was talking about. So now that the data is here, it's validated, it's clean, we've gone through the trouble of putting it here, you can now kick off AI, ML workloads and other services like Bedrock or SageMaker, which is like the AI services on AWS. And we have customers trying to enable physicians access the FHIR data in an easy, communicable manner so that they can just type like how an LLM works, type a question, and interact with the data without needing an analyst to go create queries for them, which is really nice. And then other dashboarding tools like QuickSight, you can use that to create like measure calculation dashboards or metrics dashboards to be able to keep up and see how your business is doing as you go through it. And of course, if you have other third-party applications in your organization, you can definitely leverage the APIs that are already present to be able to integrate into existing workflows that you have. So as a takeaway, you know, the health like service are like one of the tools that the technology is bringing to make all of these computable interoperability workflows easier. And the takeaway is we are able to hit really high transactional FHIR API scale, zero ETL analytics, so analysts are able to interact with the data easier. It's built for scale, so we can handle petabytes of data. The important thing is, regardless of how big that data store grows, those latencies do not change. How fast that we were talking about, it's going to be the same across that. TCO savings, like that's really important for everybody who's creating infrastructure. There are no licensing costs, it's pay as you go. Pay for what you use, which really makes it easier for all of your budgets and what you need. And of course, no maintenance overhead, because at AWS, one of the things that we really work on is how do we take away the undifferentiated heavy lifting for you so that you can focus on what you do best, so that we will manage the infrastructure and help you attain it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel.
Outstanding, thank you, sir. So, hi, I'm Daniel. I am VP of Engineering for OneUp Health. And so I'm going to pick up kind of where Karthik left off and take it a little bit further with the OneUp platform. So, it's now, what, about 13 months since 0057 was released, right? In that time, we've kind of had the opportunity to come to two conclusions. First conclusion is, wow, January 1st, 2027, gosh, that's way out there in the future. We got lots of time. The other conclusion is, oh crap, there's a lot we've got to do for that, right? This is when you look at 0057, it is not just that 9115 patient access API. Not only are we expanding what that patient access API means with things like prior auth and additional data, but we're now adding multiple new dimensions in there with provider access, payer-to-payer, electronic prior auth. It's a large scope of stuff. And so what we have done in the past to meet 9115 compliance, not going to cover us going forward. Now, if you're not paying attention and you look at all of these regulatory requirements that are being passed down with 0057, it feels like a jumble of stuff. I don't think it's a jumble of stuff. I think there's a lot of purpose in that, right? I think that with 9115, CMS was very intentional in putting that stake in the ground, right? They put that stake in the ground to prime the pumps for an industry-wide shift to standards-based, FHIR-based data sharing that drives real value for the companies involved and ultimately for the patients. Now, if you look at things that way, you can see that approaching this as, oh, we need to share the data through an API to make the government happy, doesn't meet the bar, because there is now real business value to be had out of this. This is going to change the way that we operate. So for that, we need a new platform, a new way to look at it, right? So this brings us to the OneUp Health Data Management Platform, right? We recognized this shift, and we have been investing in a new platform that is positioned to take advantage of 0057 as the avenue to really driving value for our customers and ultimately better outcomes for the patients. That platform that we've built was built around high efficiency, extreme scalability, as well as focusing on the ability to tackle whatever business value use cases we need to on top of it, and address data quality, right? We all know data quality is a challenge in healthcare, right? What about a platform that actually builds data quality in from the beginning as a fundamental tenet of how we want to proceed? So, my background, I come out of the big data space. I did time at Cloudera and at Twitter. At Twitter, we were churning something like 7 trillion events per day on the back end, right? So I have a long history in doing deep, high scalability systems, right? So a lot of what we're doing here is inspired by that which is outside of healthcare actually kind of common these days, right? If you go walk around the vendor floor, you'll notice that we've been invaded by my old friends, right? Snowflake's here, Databricks here, Google's here, Mongo's here, right? All these companies that have been crushing it outside of healthcare in the big data space, they've realized the opportunity that we have here, and there's a reason for that, right? So if you look at the architecture that we have, it is really a classic kind of big data architecture. Without getting into a lot of details, because I've got like, what, 6 minutes left or 4, the thing I would point out is the core of this architecture is a data plane where we're able to really treat the data as a first-class citizen. This is where data quality is able to come into picture. This is where proper analytics is able to come into the picture. But the interesting thing here is a data plane, a data lake, a data platform, a data swamp, whatever you want to call that in the middle, is great and all, but we're in healthcare, and where does healthcare relate to that? Well, it's all of this stuff around it, right? There's a lot of work that goes into getting the data into that system. There's a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge that gets baked into those ingest flows that understand how to take that data out of the healthcare systems and convert it into a standardized format like FHIR. And then on the serving side, you've got FHIR as an outbound access point so that we have that common lingua franca among all of the companies to really share that data and get business value out of it. So yes, having that central data plane, having that what a Databricks brings, what a Snowflake brings, really important, fundamental, changes the game, but it's also the stuff around it that ties it to healthcare and really brings the value out that sets it apart. Now, one last thing that I'll call out on this, and this is kind of interesting to be talking about in an API-oriented conversation. APIs are brilliant. We talk to our customers about API, and they're like, yes, we need an API. Not sure exactly what it is or what it looks like, but we need one because we know we do, right? What we have built into this platform is a user experience on top of the APIs, such that you as a business can take advantage of this platform in your workflows. It fits into what you're doing. And just to close out, I'm going to go through just a couple of screenshots of the sort of information, the sort of business workflow that you get out of this platform. So for example, a nice dashboard to keep track of where ingest is going, how many resources have you ingested, where are the problems, and being able to drill down from there. Have you ever wondered, why isn't my data available for serving? Well, you can go drill into it. You can find the issues. You can find your data quality challenges. You've got usage reports. Hey, wouldn't it be nice to know who's actually hitting that 9115 access API, and are they getting value out of it? How frequently is that being used? We're baking that into the platform because, quite frankly, if you're doing this for a reason other than the government told me to, which is what 0057 is about. It's about pushing us to derive actual value out of this. You want to know what that is. You want to know what your end users are getting out of the platform. Data quality scorecard, right? We have the data in a data plane. We can run analytics against it. We can tell you how you're doing. We can go, hey, did you notice, like, you're screwing this part up a lot. Like, maybe you want to address that and send us a new cut of that data because your end users are going to get a lot more value out of it if you do, right? And then things like who is using the APIs, not just how much, but who, right? What health apps are connecting into your patient access on behalf of your end users? What payers are using your payer-to-payer API? What providers are coming in through your provider APIs? Right, so that just give you a little bit of a flavor of how we're trying to bring this together, connected end to end into a real meaningful experience. So, oh, and that, I tried to get to the last slide and apparently there was no last slide. So we're back to this. So, thank you for coming out. Karthik and I are here for questions if you have anything you want to ask. And I have to call out, we also have the infamous Don Rucker in the audience who can also chime in. Questions, anyone? There you go. Thank you, sir. No questions? All right, well, Karthik and I will pose for pictures with you afterwards if that's yeah, we'll sign things if you like, yeah. All right, well, thank you all.